So speaking of pariahs, here's a ship that kind of got a amazing rep when it dropped. It was kind of a do everything super fighter that could blow up Gladius's Gladian multiple Gladius. It's coming out damaged again, like before the Gladius could even pick it up on radar. Yeah, so this is the Ares Ion. I've got I think this is the Cinder paint. Like I said, I like paints, and it was really obvious that it kind of came out of the gates overpowered, that they didn't quite know how we were going to use it. It was super accurate. It shot relatively fast. My solution was just slow down the main gun a little bit so its refire rate was slow, but it was accurate, and it would have been fine. And instead they just kind of turned it into a shotgun, so that if you're shooting at something big, which honestly, the ship was made to go after big ships. It was not made to be a little ship hunter. Back to that rock, scissors, paper thing, this thing's kryptonite was supposed to be light fighters. Instead, it was popping them in one shot. So, I mean, it was clearly broken. And then people just lost their mind when they kind of brought it into alignment with what it was supposed to be. I don't totally agree with how they did it, because again, they took this huge size 7 gun here and just made it wildly inaccurate, which I also don't think is a good representation. But I still think that this is a good ship. It flies pretty well. It's pretty, like all Crusader ships, it's got good acceleration. If that big gun does score a hit on a light fighter, that light fighter is going to be in a lot of pain. It may not kill him in one shot, but even back when this thing was overpowered, it was taking probably about 2 shots. You hit a Gladius or an arrow with 2 shots from this thing, pretty much anything light sized, and it would die. Now, I think it's like 3 or 4, and it's hard to hit the light because the shots will go everywhere, and I'll get us up into space and show you that. So there, you can see this thing gets up to speed pretty quick. It is not a slow ship. Just people kind of, it being an overpowered super sniper ship was kind of a meme in the community. And then as CIG does, they kind of see how people use it. And with this one, they looked at it and they went, whoa, okay, that's pretty broken. And they rolled it back, and the community just lost their minds. And now this ship is known as being useless, and it's not useless. You take this thing against a ship that was designed to hurt, like think something Connie sized or larger, or even something Freelancer sized or larger, this thing will absolutely dominate. But I mean, you can see its acceleration is still there. That is good acceleration for a big ship. So there are 2 Ares Starfighters. There's the Inferno and the Ion. This one is the Ion. The Inferno is the one with the big chain gun, basically. The big Gatling gun on the front of it. The Burt gun. Engaged. And that one, with their rethinking of ballistics, is like, ballistics are supposed to mostly get through shields. They dialed that back a bit too than where they started it. But right now, the Inferno, I wouldn't say it's overpowered. Once armor comes into the game, that thing will balance it off. But the Ion is theoretically, actually, somebody started locking me. That is weird. Here, before So there, you can kind of get a sense for how far it shoots, but let me go up here. I'll turn that off so you can get a good sense for the spread that we're talking about here. So it's not terrible. It's a pretty solid shot. It's just not as powerful as it was, and people wanted their super overpowered heavy fighter, and CIG took away their candy, and this is what we got now, is the ship that it was supposed to be. Now, did they launch it overpowered and then draw it back after the sale was over? Yeah. Is that a little questionable and maybe a little sketch? Maybe. I think CIG does less of that than people think. I think what really happens is they kind of do, by the time these ships are finished in production, CIG doesn't have a whole lot of time to get it out to us. Like they rolled a ship out to us pretty soon after it's finalized. So they basically slap paint on it and give it to us and see what we do with it, which honestly is fair. That's kind of the advantage of an alpha project like this that's open, is you've got literally a million testers out there. Throw it to the community that's going to be using it, see how they use it and break it, and then dial it in from there. A QA team of, let's be honest, probably 2 or 3 people working on one specific ship are not going to stress test this thing like the entire community will. So, do I have a problem with how they rolled it out? Yes and no. I think it's... I get why it was done that way. I mean, people just kind of think that CIG has these things that are already built and fully tested out, and they're just kind of sitting on them until they give them to us. It's not working like that, not from what I've seen. Could totally be wrong, but let's just go through. Its roll is pretty good. Its pitch and yaw are pretty good. It's a good ship. And one of the reasons that I have this instead of the Inferno, again, is because I have a spacefaring fleet. So this ship, which doesn't need to constantly be rearmed every time it shoots for more than a minute, is the way to go. The Inferno is great if you're operating within a shorter distance. Because you can just go back to base, rearm, go back out. Or if you're operating from something like a Kraken, I guess. The advantage of the Ion here is that it can pretty much just kind of go out on its own, and the only thing that's stopping it is if it gets destroyed. So if that happens, you're screwed anyway. You're not going to run out of ammo on an energy weapon. So for a spacefaring fleet like the Carnival, it makes a lot more sense. If you are engaging ground targets or you're regularly engaging heavy targets, the Inferno probably makes more sense. And what probably makes the most sense of all is teaming a squadron of these and Infernos and backing them up with a flight or two of arrows or gladiuses. So you've got the light fighters, and then you've got this big heavy hitter here. And yeah, that to me, you got a stew going. But yep, that's the Ion. I really like the ship. I don't fly it that often anymore. It's situational, but when I'm running things like Xenothreat, where I know there's going to be capital ships, I do occasionally pull this one out. Especially if I'm going out there solo. Just why not? You can also switch out the missiles on it. I didn't show this off, but it's got 8 missiles. You can actually switch this out for 2 size 5 torpedoes, which is kind of an interesting mix. Or I think you can put rattlers in there. I haven't tried that one yet, but you can mix up the missiles to a pretty good degree, just to either, depending on what you're trying to do. So, I mean, you throw 2 size 5s on there, and that's most of the way towards a Harbinger. Yeah. I am whelmed by this ship. not overwhelmed, not underwhelmed, just whelmed. Okay, anyone that's watched this channel for any length of time has probably seen this one. This right here is another one of my named ships. This is Cloudbreaker, which is a Crusader Mercury Star Runner. MSR is what most people call them. Pretty cool ship, changed a bit since concept. I have let my feelings on that be known. I'm going to give you a quick tour on the inside, which I haven't done with most of the other ships, because honestly, most of the other ships have been single seaters. But yeah, I'll just show you around Cloudbreaker real fast. So originally in the concept image, and so here you can kind of see that there used to be an engine in the middle, and it was a little bit sleeker looking. Now it's a little bit chunkier. And so here you can sort of see the cargo bay. One of the benefits of having it be bigger is that you've got this cargo bay that the old one probably would have been down here. Now you've got room for almost another box, but that was mostly make room for this secret panel, which is kind of cool. You got enough room for some SEU boxes here, but then you've got access to this, which in concept, this is one of those things that sounded like a great idea, but the ship makes so many sacrifices for these Jeffries tubes and these little hiding spots that literally everybody knows about, and they give you access to your entire ship. So if somebody gets into your cargo hold, they can literally invade any part of your ship from there, making it completely unsecure. There are more awesome things in the world. So you got this little panel here that's hidden. Close that, that closes that up. But again, and I think the components are in here. It might be, yeah, this is where the components are. So if anyone gets into your cargo hold, you're pretty much screwed, because they can shut off your entire ship here, and they can get into your entire ship from here with zero problem and pop up anywhere. So you'd be playing whack-a-mole. The redesign, it was kind of cool, but I hope when they go back and they do the gold standard pass, they shrink it down to the normal size and get rid of those tubes. I wouldn't mind losing some cargo space for that. And the reason I say that is actually because of all these blinking lights here. So these are all servers. And what the Mercury Star Runner is actually known for isn't running cargo like in there, but it's running data. This is actually a data runner with some cargo capacity. Scanning room, originally in the design, this was up there, which I felt made more sense. It had it under the dish, but this is another sacrifice they kind of made, because this right over here is one of the entrances to those Jeffrey tubes. That's how you get down into those tubes. But if you didn't know that, you've just got this giant wasted space here. You can sit in this seat, but the radar dish that you're controlling is on the other side. So it's just kind of weird. The two turrets, you access them there. I think there is here's another access port down below. You come in here, there's another access port here. Come into habitation, which is where your bedroom is. And I believe there's another access port right here. Yeah. So someone could sneak onto your ship in the cargo bay, pop up in the bedroom while your people are logged off, kill all of you and steal your ship. Although I guess if they got into the cargo hold, they could just come up this way, but it's still just kind of needless. This slides off too. Let's see if they actually fix this. This wasn't working for a little while, so let's grab the queen and place it there. There you go. That again opens the tube. Now, if they were just little pockets, which is I think what most people kind of envisioned, was that there would just be little storage units sitting around. But the problem is all the humans that play this game know where all these storage places are. So the only thing it would ever work for or work against is NPCs. In the design, the scanner room was like here-ish. But I'm not going to spend the whole time crapping on the MSR. This is my daily driver for a reason. I absolutely love this ship. It's a hell of a lot of fun to fly. So let's get it up and get going. I'll kind of show you what it can do. Let's take a look at the outside first. So this skin that I'm running is the Night Runner skin. So this skin is the Night Runner skin. And when they're having a concept sale, they haven't done one of these for a while, which is kind of a shame because they're fun. If you've ever seen The Reunion, which is kind of a machinima that CIG did around IAE a couple years back, Dugan was flying around in an MSR, and that was the belligerent duck. And I wanted that one to win badly, but the belligerent duck in the sort of promo sale for this thing, they had a game that you could play where the whole community kind of picked which side they wanted to be on. The Night Runner was the one that was trying to hunt Dugan down. She was running away in the belligerent duck and trying to hide. This thing was trying to find her. So you can sort of see that disc right there. When you actually, I'm wondering if I turn on scanning mode. No, it actually doesn't pop it out. This is not a fighting ship. So,
launch complete.
That's important to note. It's got 6 Panthers on it, which
Landing gear up.
isn't nothing. I mean, that's 6 size 3s. You're not going to be winning any dogfights with it. The guns are really made to kind of harass people to keep them away from you. This ship does have pretty great acceleration, some of the best in the game. Might be dialed in a little bit eventually, but all in all, pretty good. This ship's strength is always going to be its speed. But this is a data runner, so its main job is to collect info and run info. We'll see what that game loop eventually ends up being. But for right now, we don't know much about it. We just know that, like, the Herald, the MSR, I think the Caterpillar has some servers on it that can run data. I'm trying to think of other data runners out there. There's a lot of explorers. There's not a lot of data runners. But I love this ship. It's okay. It's not acting very zippy right now, but it's not so fast on the rolling, pretty fast on the straightaways, pretty fast on accelerations. Pitch, it's pretty quick on. Yaw, it's pretty quick on. For whatever reason, rolling isn't, which is weird since it has the wings. I'm guessing this thing's flight model will change a bit eventually. But let's get it up into space because all the vehicles act a little bit differently in space. Yeah, so a little bit more zippy in space. You can see that. Whee! So guns, again, it's got the 6 size 3s, and then it's got 4 Tempest, 2 Arresters. I think that's all the weapons it's got. But yeah, not a fighting ship. It's made to run away, not to fight. You can fit most of the medium-sized vehicles in it, so think anything Rock or Ursa sized or smaller will easily fit in this ship. Obviously anything like the Tonk won't. Just the only thing that can carry that is the Hercules, I think the 890 Jump. This is probably, along with like the Constellation, the 400i, probably the largest ship you could solo. But realistically, running this thing efficiently, probably 2 to 3 people. A lot like the 400i, it won't fit more than 3 people, at least not long term. So 1 to 3 is this thing's crew size. You do have this little window right here, which is kind of nice when you're pulling into a hangar, but again, this ship isn't gigantic. So it's not as big an issue as something like the Hercules or the Carrack or the Reclaimer. So one last thing that I wanted to point out is the only way in and out of this ship is the back ramp. So this is a long trip down here. The people that made this said, yeah, that was an oversight. We didn't think about that when we were laying it out, that that's the only way in and out. And they're thinking of carving in a doorway somewhere over here. I hope they kind of do a little bit deeper dive on this ship. I love this ship, but they've just gotten so much better at designing ship interiors now that without changing this one a whole lot, they can make it a whole lot better. When I show you the 400i, I'll show you what I mean. When I got into the 400i, it was like, oh, damn, this is what I wanted for the MSR. But here we are, MSR, Cloudbreaker. Love this ship. Absolutely love it. You watch this show, or you watch this channel for any length of time, you'll probably see me pull this one a few times. But again, because you've only got one way in and out, and we're living in dark times, always make sure your ramp is closed. So kind of surprisingly, we're through the Crusader ships. Really just the Ares, the MSR, and the Hercules. This is the first of the next line. This is the first Drake ship. This is a Buccaneer. I actually don't think I have the Buccaneer, but it's always had kind of a place in my heart. I love it. It's like this little junky fighter that is just covered in guns and thrusters. So I thought I'd show it to you. Like, it's got, let's see, a size 5 up there, 2 size 3s, 2 size 2s. You can see these little nozzles. It's got these thrusters everywhere. I think it's got something like 16 thrusters. Originally, the Cutlass was supposed to be this size, and the Caterpillar was supposed to be the evil Freelancer, so it's supposed to be Freelancer sized. And then they made the Cutlass too big, and they realized they needed a smaller ship to fill that role, so they built the Buccaneer. And it was originally supposed to have cargo like 2 SCU, and they ditched that idea. I don't know if they brought it back. Doesn't look like it. But they might on the Gold Standard Pass if enough people howl. Not a lot of missiles, a lot of guns, very maneuverable. It can deliver a hell of a punch, but it can't really take one, which is why it isn't meta right now. And it's got those gigantic engines, which kind of make it an easy target from the front to blow off a wing or blow off the engines, against something like a Gladius or an Arrow, which is why it isn't meta against those, which is kind of too bad, because I usually have more fun flying this thing than I do either the Arrow or Gladius. So let's go ahead and take it out. So you can see typical Drake style. You've kind of got a cramped cockpit here. It means inflammable. So weapons, it's got a lot of ballistics on it, stock. It's got the Revenant and 2 Yellow Jackets, which are the Revenant is size 4, the Yellow Jackets are size 2, I believe. Panthers are size 3. So yeah, firepower on this thing is fairly impressive. I usually, like I do with most ships, usually pull the ballistics and run energy weapons, just because that's my bag. I don't like to shoot for 30 seconds and run dry with my main gun. But let's go. So again, this thing gets up to speed fast. Those big engines, that's not a big surprise. Yeah, just it's a hair off the meta. Like, it just can't take the Arrow or the Gladius in a fight, really. But I think it's a really fun ship to fly, so maybe run it in a little bit more bruising races, like ones where free fire is okay. All in all, fun ship. I do recommend it. If you at least want to dabble or if you really like the Drake aesthetics, you could do a lot worse. Again, it's got kind of bigger wings, so it'll be, here, I'll show you that. So, I mean, you can see it's got a pretty fair amount of wing surface. It's covered in thrusters. So when the aerodynamic flight planes come into play, it should have, it should be pretty maneuverable in atmospheres. So you got that to look forward to. So here, now that we have made it out of Quantum, let me show you how quickly this ship can get up to speed. So we are at a dead stop now. I've got my speed limiter set all the way to the max. Here we go. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 seconds to get up to more or less top speed, which is, make that about 11 seconds to 1300. So this thing can accelerate pretty sick, and the part that's fun, look at that. It's just so ridiculous. You got this tiny little ship, and so this is the most likely suspect for why there is a Buccaneer in my hangar. Just this is the Drake Caterpillar, and I do actually own one of these. And the main reason being, let's run up to the side here. Even though I have some hefty cargo movers, the Drake Caterpillar, each one of these, while they hold cargo now, a lot like the Carrack, these will be modular. So there was an ISC around the verse is what they called it back then, where they kind of showed all the different modules that they were doing, and they had medical modules, they had troop transport modules, they had salvage modules, they had, I don't think they had mining modules, but refining modules would probably be one that would be in there. Probably dragonfly modules. You can actually put a dragonfly up front. So one of the things that the Caterpillar does have, which is probably going to get functionality pretty soon, is this right, maybe not that, I think that's one of their parking sensors, but probably right here is a tractor beam. If you can sort of see that little section right there, that's actually where you operate a tractor beam. You open up these sides and you can just pull stuff in. Citizen Kate had a great video that she dropped earlier today. Highly recommend you go check it out, where they went and they had vultures, and they had like 4 vultures, 2 lined up on either side, just unloading everything into the side of the Caterpillar. So while you have ships like the Hercules, which carry more cargo, this ship arguably might have more utility. Also, this right here is the command module. And if it looks like its own little spaceship, that's because it is. It can actually break off right here and fly away. Eventually, it doesn't right now. Not a heavily armed ship. It does have 4 size 4s. I think those are size 4s on this thing. But it's got 1 turret up front and 1 turret right there. So surprisingly undergunned for a Drake ship, but it's meant to be escorted by Buccaneers and cutlasses and that sort of thing. So this is the bay. I'll take you around real quick. This is where crew sleeps and eats. I think you've got a toilet, of course, in true Drake fashion, is just open to the world, so I hope you like to have people watch you poop. You can make food there. Don't think it has any storage. This is an older ship, but holds up really well. Like the gold standard pass on this thing won't be very difficult. You've kind of got the catwalk up there, which cuts into the port side. Starboard side is wide open though, so typically you'd want to pull this thing up so whatever you're loading is on the starboard side, and that's where a tractor beam is too. Eventually, it's not in the game yet, but I'll go ahead and I'll run you up to the front here. So this is the front. This is the access to your front turret, which sits right there. You'll have a little bit better view. And then you can actually retract or deploy the thing from here. This is more or less made to carry dragonflies, so you can have 3 across there. But it also doubles as a cargo bay. This thing does carry a fair amount of cargo, and this, back before trading kind of got nerfed, was practically my daily driver. Like when trading worked, this was the ship that I was flying the most. You could take that up to an EVA module. When they do have the gold standard pass on this, that'll probably move to the side of the ship somewhere. That's sort of what they've decided to do with that. Let's see, command access. Let's just take you through here. So when I said the Caterpillar had servers, this is it. So you can see the MSR has about, what, 5 times as many servers as this thing. Your engineering bay is back here, so you got your engines there. You've got jump drive and components are back here, and then it goes downstairs and there's more of the same. Back in the main hallway, again, that's where you fly it from, is up there. This over here is where your tractor beam is, or will be one day. Obviously, you can see that it needs a little work, but you've got a great view of the side of the ship, so you can have all of these doors open, and I'll do that in a second. And you could just be using the tractor beam to pull all of these crates in. Gonna be a hell of a good thing. Like, this ship will have a ton of utility that the Hercules doesn't, specifically because of that. Oh, and the other way to get up here is you kind of go down and around from the elevator room. But now I'm gonna open this thing up, show you what that looks like. This is the command module. I will show you this first. So you fly it from there, co-pilot there. You've got a couple extra stations here, but the real magic happens down here. So you've got a whole other living zone here. So you got your toilet, cooking area. You can crew, I think all of the bridge crew can fit here. Looks like there's just 2 people. Again, kind of like the Corsair. There's a tractor beam on this side too. That same thing, you guys see everything from here. But remember, on this side, you've got the catwalk, so you gotta be a little bit more careful. This will eventually be a door to the outside when this module can pop off. Still surprised there's only 2 beds here. For whatever reason, I thought there was more. There is no captain's quarters on this thing. Everybody just kind of sleeps in the open, which is kind of Drake's motto. So typically this thing is like a crew of 4 to 5, I would say. Probably be safe. So let's get this thing flipped on. So that's on. We're running the polar skin. I think this is either the polar or the best in show skin. I kind of like it. It just stands out a little bit, but let's go ahead and open this up. So there, eventually what's going to happen, you can sort of see these platforms there will eventually go, they can stop there, or you'll have a secondary option to lower them all the way to the ground. So when you're landed, people can load things onto those things, and each one will operate as an elevator to lift it up to the level of the actual bays. Let's go ahead and close that just because you can see it's dropping the lower elevator too, which is the only way to get into the ship. But let's go ahead and get out of here. Let's get this thing flying. It accelerates decent for a huge ship. Probably not as well as Crusader. Again, one of the things that you kind of have to get used to is the fact that you're on the port side.
You are clear to launch.
You have decent visibility in this thing, and the pilot actually does control some guns here. You've got 2 size, I believe they're size 4s there on gimbals, and 2 fixed size 5s. Or I think they're size 4s. I think you've got gimbal size 3s on this command module and 2 fixed size 4s. And then you've got the turrets, which there's 2 of them. There's the one there and the one sort of back behind us. So let's go ahead and take off. So where the thing gets its namesake from, you can see all the legs that this thing has. All pull in. So you can see its acceleration isn't terrible. I mean, I've certainly been in worse. So the Caterpillar is very much meant to kind of be a Raiders, I wouldn't say command ship because that probably falls to the Kraken. But this is kind of the one that put it in the blockade runner, or the kind of thing that shows up after the fight that you load all the loot into. Not that Drake is purely pirates, but this is a fun one to run cargo in, is still a fun one to run cargo in. You can't run as much as the Hercules, so it's kind of fallen out of favor a little bit lately. But I have a feeling, like Citizen Kate has demonstrated, that it'll probably find its way again now that salvaging is in, just because you can open up all those side doors and load it immediately, whereas the Hercules, you've got those giant ramp doors to the front and back, but it's not as form-fitted as the Caterpillar is for the role. So I would say if you're going to run this thing with 2 or 3 people, so including yourself, rather than putting the extra people in the turrets, which kind of have a limited range to them, you'd probably be better served putting them in escort fighters. Just kind of my 2 cents. Otherwise, I love the Caterpillar. I upgraded my original Caterpillar to a C2 Hercules, which I felt like was a good move. But the Caterpillar just has a ton of utility that, especially being modular, that the C2 won't, or that the Hercules series won't. And so not a terrible idea in a spacefaring fleet to have at least one of these. I can just sort of see how it'll be situationally useful in so many different situations that the second I sold it, I kind of regretted it, or the second I melted it, I kind of regretted it. So I immediately got one back. But again, this is not a BMM, so it won't be the ship that I will be flying in the verse. So somebody else will be making use of this in the Carnival. And when modularity comes in, that could be a pretty cool ship. You could be kind of the belle of the ball, which isn't a term I just throw around. So one interesting thing about this, I guess if it's going to put the C2 in the front hangars, it's probably going to put the Caterpillar in the front hangars. Again, this is landing in these hangars is kind of the tricky part to a Caterpillar, because your nose is way, way, way out there. Oh, we're upside down. Hang on. So just take it slow and remember that the whole ship is off to your starboard. So you almost want to feel like you're going to scrape the side and the command module in order to make sure that everything else fits. So this is the engine room. Just thought I'd show you that. That's where that ladder comes from. You got components over here eventually. This ship kind of predates components. That's your lower turret on the aft. You can shoot it forward, it's just you're not going to have much of a shot, so it's really made to shoot backwards. And then there's this guy, which I think you can fit. I think you can fit a Dragonfly. Nah, it's a bit too short for a Dragonfly. And then I always shut this just out of an abundance of caution. If I can get the Carnival out in force this time, we might do the same thing Citizen Kate did and run a vulture parade with this thing. See how that goes. So for a guy that makes fun of Drake, I have an awful lot of Drake ships, I'm realizing. They're just good ships that kind of fit my feel for spaceships. So this is the Corsair, which I'm sure you realize by that one gigantic wing off to the side. Like most Drakes, it's heavy on the guns, Like all 4 of these guns up front, which are size 4s, could be switched out for size 5s. They're size 4 gimbaled, are pilot controlled. And then there are 2 guns over here on the wing that are size 5, I think, that are also pilot controlled. Then it's got these 2 man turrets on either side of the bridge, and it's got a 1 remote turret up there. So if you're running a crew of 4 on this thing, you're fully crewed. You can actually solo this. It works as a solo ship, but I wouldn't recommend it. I would have at least 2 people on this ship, especially when the game goes live. You're going to want 4, but right now you could get away with just the pilot. All in all, just this is what I mean by CIG has gotten a lot better at designing their interiors. You look at this and just everything about the ship. This is actually the airlock, and then you got this back here. Again, all the doors are physicalized. Actually, maybe this is the airlock. Yeah, I think that's... Yeah, this is the airlock. I don't remember what that room is. I think that's the component room. You've got components and controls in here for engineering. Got a decent sized cargo bay there, which is pretty nice. This and the 400i, you can sort of see once you get into this. This is just so much better thought out than the MSR. It's sort of getting into these ships makes you wish that the MSR were designed now, which is sort of what Jared talks about when he says you want your ship to be last in line because they will have learned all of these things about making ships. And the captain's quarters are right here. This seat actually rolls down and underneath, and it controls the remote turret that's on the top back. They said eventually you'll be able to land from there, but you can't do that yet, so who knows. So on this one, I do like to run it with auto gimbal on, which I normally don't. And the reason I do that is because this ship does not turn well at all. So it's not maneuverable. It's maneuverable when compared to ships in its class, but if you're thinking you're gonna bust heads on a fighter, you're not. That is where you'd want the little extra crew. Also remember that those wings stick up pretty high, so when you're in, and make sure that I set my controls up right, because the wing goes down, it hits the wall in here. So yeah, when you're in a hangar in this thing, you have to be a little careful. So you can sort of see that as I move forward here, my wing is just barely making it under the hangar door. And then we can kind of do what this thing is known for. Put those wings down. Unfortunately, my binding isn't working, so I don't know what's going on there. So I'll have to fix that. So this one was kind of my daily driver for bunker missions, or not necessarily bunker, but like box and stuff like that. This ship is actually named, this is Le Cygne, and I got this one on concept, which is why this one has a name. You can't actually get names, although I'm not seeing the name on there, so that must be bugged. You can see it in the last patch. But yeah, once again, I'd say this ship or the MSR will probably be my backup plan if I can't get enough people to crew out my Banu Merchantman. But if I can get enough people to crew my Banu Merchantman, like the other ships here, this one will be going into the fleet or the Carnival. So, yeah, you ever wanted to fly one of these and you got a crew of like 2 to 3, join the Carnival. So on top of all of the guns, which look like that when you're firing, which is nasty, again, You can see not the quickest yaw. Sort of takes a little while to get back on track. I think it's comparable to how the Connie moves. Roll isn't terrible. Actually, pitch is better than yaw, so you might do better classic flying. So roll into your turns could help a little bit, but that is why you have these guns on the side, because ships can kind of hang out right here if you're solo and just plink the hell out of you. Like a fighter, an arrow or a gladius can easily stay in your blind spots, which there's another one right here. So this is a ship where you definitely want to keep people right in front of you. If someone gets behind you in this thing, you're probably screwed, although it does have the option to run away. In addition to all the guns, let's kill that. You got 8 arresters, and I think that's it, which arresters are size 3s, so not terrible. All in all, really fun ship. So while the MSR was supposed to be the sort of Millennium Falcon of this game, this ship actually has more Millennium Falcon vibes to it. Just kind of, that ship's a piece of junk, but yeah, it can do all this neat stuff. It definitely has more guns than the Millennium Falcon did. But there is one more feature that is Millennium Falcon-esque, and I'll show that to you at the end of this one. So the last thing I wanted to show you is actually related to this elevator. So you can see there's 3 handles here. This one takes you to the middle level. This one takes you down and out. So what does this one do? Well, it takes you up onto the roof. Now this is cool for EVA. It's also cool for sort of those missions where you're going in on box missions on the derelict outposts, because up here you've got some cover. You've actually got the ship shields and stuff like that. Not bad to kind of survey the area. I'm assuming you will also be able to do other things like get people into EVA quicker, rather than falling out the bottom. This way they don't have to worry about the ship over top of them. They're basically on an open platform. But yeah, Corsair gang, this one is a hell of a lot of fun. It competes with the MSR and the 400i for my daily driver. And I never thought anything would compete with the MSR for a daily driver. All right, that does it for this episode, gang. Next time, we're going to roll in with the next batch of Drake ships and then start tackling Asperia. So stay tuned for that.